stuff you guys were bringing up. But, Max, I'll start with you here. With that being said, has the Niners Super Bowl window officially closed?
Absolutely not. Look, Bill Barnwell has an excellent article on ESPN.com. I suggest you read it, where he makes the case for moving on from Jimmy G. He doesn't take a lot of shots downfield. He's not very good when he does. Not a lot of average yards per pass, right? And he's not durable. And it's a very good argument. And analytically, you may be right about it. And maybe quarterback record is overrated the way pitchers' win and loss record in baseball, especially in this era, is overrated. But I'm sorry. If Jimmy G was just a little bit above replacement, then his replacement quarterback, Mulder, whoever it is, would not lose almost every single game. Even look at this year. Like, I know I take you through this with Jimmy G every time. Belichick wanted to move on from Brady from him. He was 2-0. Shanahan says, oh, you can't? Robert Kraft won't let you? Great. We'll take him and give him a big contract. He took over a practically winless team. He went 5-0. He got hurt. They were practically winless again. He comes back the next year. No, he misses the following season. They lose almost every game. They lost 12 or 13 games the following season. He comes back the next season. They win almost every game. They win 12 or 13 games that year and make it to the Super Bowl and have a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. And if he hits Emmanuel Sanders on that pass, we're all talking about how he's a Super Bowl hero, right? This year, again, guys, even look at their record now. They have 5 losses. He got hurt early in the season. He clearly wasn't right against the Dolphins when he got benched. He got healthy. He won 2 games. He got hurt again. They lost that game, and then he didn't play. They lost the next game. If you want to tell me Jimmy G's not durable, and they're only going to be Super Bowl contenders in seasons when he's healthy, and who knows how often that will be, and maybe they should move on from him because of that, that's fine. But I'm telling you, when Jimmy G is healthy on this Niners team, they will be contenders every year. It is not coincidence. It's not an accident that he took over a team. It's not just that he took it over and they were winless and then they were this great team. It's that every time he's out, they can't win. He's so much better than a replacement quarterback, and otherwise the team is good enough. Their window is not closed.
You're wrong, but what else is new? Here's the deal. The bottom line is the bottom line is this. The bottom line is this. You know, I've said this on many, many occasions, Max, Ryan, Molly, and Molly can testify to this. You had to go to 4 layers of people with the San Francisco 49ers before you got to Jimmy G. I never said he was a scrub. I never said he didn't deserve the $137.5 million and the $72 million guaranteed. What I said is that he is an above-average quarterback, but he's not that game-changing dude that Max tries to make him out to be just because of his record. I said that you got to the running game. Last year they had Tevin Coleman, they had Mostert, they had Breida and those boys. They had the number 2 rushing attack in all of football. This year, they're ranked 14th. Last year, their defense was one of the top 10 defenses in the league and number 1 against the pass. But that clearly is not the case this year because Richard Sherman has been out, because Nick Bosa's gone for the season, because DeForest Buckner ultimately left and he departed and he was in Indianapolis. Arik Armstead, if you recall, he led the San Francisco 49ers with about 10 sacks last year. It wasn't Bosa. It wasn't Buckner. It was him. He went from 10 sacks in the first 8 games or so. The brothers got 1.5 sacks. Why? Because you don't have Bosa and Buckner there, and as a result, your pass rush is severely compromised. Your secondary is clearly compromised because of Richard Sherman's health. Those kind of things play a significant role in the San Francisco 49ers struggling. Now, just like we can't sit up there and blame Jimmy Garoppolo for what's transpired this year because he hasn't been healthy either, and George Kittle being out for the next 8 weeks or so certainly doesn't help matters. We also have to recognize the fact that last year they wouldn't have been what they were if it wasn't for that defense playing lights out and putting the offense in a position where Kyle Shanahan could engage in ball control, run the football, have Jimmy Garoppolo dip and dunk and do all of these kind of things to the point where he had a combined 208 yards passing in the 2 playoff games in the NFC before he went to the Super Bowl and lost a 10-point lead. We could talk about how Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs came roaring back or what have you. But last time I checked, you don't score and keep the ball. You score and then you forfeit the ball. And Jimmy G's offense had multiple opportunities to stop the bleeding, and they couldn't do it when it counted. A matter of fact, we recall instances not just when Jimmy G missed throws. We also recall instances where Kyle Shanahan didn't trust Jimmy G with the football, which to me is an indictment against him. It doesn't mean he's a scrub. Hold on, Max. Max, I didn't interrupt you. I did not interrupt you. I did not interrupt you. It was the Super Bowl. I did not interrupt you. The point that I'm making is that at the end of the day, what happens is that he's a damn good quarterback. Nobody's denying that. But is he that game changer? No. And as a result, I believe that the San Francisco 49ers have missed their window. They'll be a playoff team. They'll be competitive. But with the teams around them in the NFC and what we're seeing from them, I believe that San Francisco's window was last year. And at least with Jimmy G, they may have missed it.
Yeah, and I agree with Stephen A. Like, this conversation, I thought it was about the San Francisco 49ers window, and Max turned it into very early. Is Jimmy G better than the second and third quarterback on his team, which he obviously is. But when you're talking about this team window, let's think about the team from last year. That team was perfect. That team was perfect everywhere but at quarterback. Because you can think of probably 15 quarterbacks that if you put on that team last year, you feel like you win the Super Bowl. You could take early on in his career, Ben Roethlisberger, not the Ben Roethlisberger now, but early on in his career, the guy that we had, and he would have hit that throw to Emmanuel Sanders. He would have found a way to win that game. And Jimmy Garoppolo just didn't. That team defensively was set up in a way where you're not supposed to lose. They kept the ball in front of them. They could get after the quarterback. They had linebackers that ran sideline to sideline. You could run the ball offensively. You had these multiple pieces outside that you could move around, and Kyle Shanahan could use as chess pieces to manipulate the board and put Jimmy G in the best situation. Last year was the year. But what happens is these teams get to the Super Bowl, and Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots have us so messed up in the head, we go, you know what? They'll get back. You know what? They'll do it again. But that's not how it works. Because, see, I remember when we were with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the time I was with them early and Ben was young, he wasn't the perfect quarterback. He wasn't the guy that led the team. He wasn't one of the top quarterbacks in the league, but he was talented, he was clutch, and he was good enough with a good running game and a great defense that we were going to find ways to win. But then we started to see that window close. I leave, Troy retires, James Ferrier, all these guys are gone. And so they had to revamp it. And in revamping it, now they had Ben Roethlisberger long enough, they have another window. But that's how it has to happen. It doesn't just, you don't just go from being there, supposed to win it, to not winning it,
I think that's
to
a good
having
argument,
all these
Ryan,
guys injured, to having guys leave and do it again. And so what I'm saying is Jimmy G is good enough in a sense. It's not Jimmy G's fault that this team doesn't have a window right now to win the Super Bowl. But he is a part of the reason they didn't win last year's Super Bowl. He has to accept that. Now, you can move on from him and start over and try to figure it out with a new quarterback. But Jimmy G's window, as far as this team is concerned, is done.
I appreciate that argument. In other words, they get to the Super Bowl. That was his shot. Hit that pass, and you're a Super Bowl champion. Miss it, you're an also ran. He missed it. There was your shot, kid. However, Lynch is a very good GM. I expect the team to be competitive.
Yeah.
And as long as they have Jimmy G, who's Jimmy G? Jimmy G's a guy who gets rid of the ball quickly, who throws twice as many touchdowns as he does interceptions, and who wins 3 times as many games as he loses for a team or iterations of a team that basically can't win at all, that lose 3 times as much as they win without him. So the question is, were he to stay in San Francisco, could Lynch put together a team that Jimmy G would once again be in a position to win a Super Bowl with? I think the answer is yes. To say so to me, it means the window's not closed.
Well, a couple of things. Number one, again, you can say that, and you might have a legitimate case to some degree. I don't agree with that because I think it's not really about him. It's about the other guys around him. Number two, as Ryan highlighted, you know what? If you want to sit up there and say he's better than the number 2 or number 3 quarterback because they win with him, but without him, excuse me, what do they do? Well, who the hell have they had when they didn't have Jimmy G? And number 3, and more importantly, I don't know if you noticed this, Max, and Molly hasn't said it to you. Ryan hasn't said it to you. So I'm going to say say it to you. Did you become a judge and we don't know? You notice how this guy sits up there, Ryan and Molly, and he goes like this. Oh, I can appreciate that argument. What do you mean you appreciate? Could you imagine, Max? Could you imagine, Max, if we looked at you and went like this? Well, Max, we appreciate that argument there.
Well,
really?
Actually,
we don't care. We don't care.
Actually, frequently I hear I respect where you're from. You, I hear I respect where you're coming from. I see your point of view.
Actually, that's not frequently. Actually, that's not frequently because I don't always respect where you're coming from. So that's a lie.
That's why I said it.
That's a lie.
Right, let me get in here because this is my in right now because I've been dying to ask this. Jimmy G has dealt with a lot of injuries now throughout his career, dating all the way back to New England when he was a starter. So one, I don't know if that's a concern. And two, to what I brought up earlier, the conversation you guys were having in Get Up, what do you think of something like that? Jimmy G essentially going to Atlanta, Matt Ryan with his former coach, or Jimmy G going back to New England because he doesn't have a single dollar guaranteed left on his contract, so they could essentially let him go.
Quick response from me.
Sure.
Durability at the quarterback position should always be a concern. I think that should be the number one concern for Carson Wentz because there's so many moments that he missed because of durability issues. And I think with Jimmy G, we're learning that that's a real issue with him.
And let me say something really quickly, Molly.
You guys can all talk. I just wanted to direct the conversation in this area.
All I'll say is I appreciate that argument.
Oh, my God.
Durability is an issue for Jimmy G. It is. It's an issue.
You men are so mature.
You don't give a damn what you
listen,
appreciate.
guys, I respect where you all are. I respect where you all are coming from. Okay, but when you look at Jimmy G and not being available, that's important, right? The reason that Tom Brady is so good, the reason that Eli Manning was even so good is because you always knew he'd be there. You could always depend on his availability, and you can't do that with Jimmy G. So if you have to preface every compliment or every comment about Jimmy G is when he's there, when he's available, but when he's not, I think that is a true issue. And for Kyle Shanahan, they want steadiness at that position. They want to know that they have a guy week in and week out, and you won't lose any money. But then I think it turns to what Max has said, though. If you don't have Jimmy G, because remember it was supposed to be Kirk Cousins, that didn't work out. If you don't have Jimmy G, if he goes back to New England, if you get rid of him, who do you have? Because it's been shown that even during Kyle Shanahan's time, when Jimmy G isn't the starting quarterback, this team isn't really good. So is it possible